session for the day, which is Esports and Fantasy Leagues, the new muscle power. The speaker for this session would be Lokesh Suji, President Esports Federation of India. I request you to please join us on the stage. The moderator for this session is Ananya Sachdev, founder, CEO, Mabreed Sports. Please take charge of the session. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. Today we're actually diving into this exploding landscape of esports in the country and how it's intersecting with football. We have with us our esteemed panelist, Mr. Lokesh Suji. Lokesh, welcome. So to start off with, how is esports really impacting the sports landscape, especially the football landscape in the country?
Namaste everybody. It's a great honor to be here, and thanks to Global Soccer Conclave team to set up this dedicated panel for esports. Ananya, before I jump into the answer to your question, I think it's important for me to kind of enlighten our audience what is esports, right? So esports today, eventually in sports domain, has become a buzzword. Everybody's talking about it, but let me take an opportunity to kind of highlight what esports is. So esports is basically when you organize video game competitions. So basically competitions for video games is what esports is. But having said so, please note that if you're normally playing any video game, this could be, let's say, if you're playing a game like Ludo or Fruit Ninja, or if you're doing some kind of a competition around that, those kind of casual games, that is not esports. Unfortunately, in India, esports is also misunderstood with, let's say, fantasy or online gaming, gambling, betting. So that's absolutely wrong. So that's not esports. So if you're playing, let's say, fantasy on whatever platforms, please don't be under impression that you are an esports athlete or you're playing esports. So esports typically would be, there are 4 or 5 genres of video games. If you are playing in a competition for those 4 or 5 genres of video game, that is when you will be typically called as an esports athlete. So let me quickly also highlight, what are these genres. So one of the very easiest genre to understand is sports, right? So sports, when I say, football. So for football, we have a game called FIFA or eFootball, and then there are a lot of games built around, badminton, cricket, and so forth. So that's a sports category, right? So you have video games built around sports. Then you have fighting, wherein you have games like Tekken and first-person shooter. I'm sure you guys would have always played, a game like Counter-Strike in your college or engineering days. And then you have MOBA, which is games like Dota and so on. And the last is the real-time strategy, which is games like, let's say, chess or Hearthstone or Clash Royale. So the reason why I spoke about Hearthstone is because in 2018 Asian Games, wherein esports was a demonstration title, our esports athlete Tirth Mehta won a bronze, and that was a massive achievement. Yeah, so that's pretty much. I hope I made my point clear in the terms of what esports is. And I would also like to share, it was very exciting to see that AIF team talking about eFIFA. Just to add on that, esports as of today has also become a medal sports for Asian Games 2022. Unfortunately, they got postponed for 2023. So we have India is participating in these 5 game titles of esports. So FIFA actually happens to be one of them. So that's a very proud moment. And very recently, Commonwealth Games again had a parallel Commonwealth Esports Championship, wherein our Dota team won a bronze medal. So good. I think the excitement is there. So now ask me your question again, please.
Sure. Thank you. I think the audience would have appreciated that. Currently, where do you think the esports landscape is in India versus, let's say, even in the global landscape?
So thankfully, India has always been, from the technology side of it, India has always been a mobile-first market. And that is that is clearly reflecting in any activity or any kind of economic development which India is seeing today. So and that is also reflecting into our esports. So when we talk about esports, obviously the number of esports athletes and the players are large on the mobile. and less of course on PC, and then obviously lesser side would be the console. So overall we are looking at somewhere around 450 million online gamers, and that's a massive number. And in terms of the revenues, we are looking at, as of today for esports, and obviously when I say esports, quoting and quoting, so esports and online gaming, they are two very separate things. So our esports revenues are as of today somewhere around 300 crores or 400 crores, which is good, and thanks to COVID, last 2 years have been very good for our sector. But obviously we are very confident that by 2025 we should be touching somewhere around 1100 crores. So that's a massive jump.
Absolutely. It looks like a very lucrative market. And how do you think it actually impacts specific divisions of the sports landscape, be it content, be it streaming, as these online and offline worlds get together in football?
Ananya, that's a very interesting point, and that's where we see that esports can add value to the traditional sports, and similarly, the traditional sports can help esports spread. See, whatever numbers I have shared, whether that's 400, 500, or whatever crores of revenues we are talking about, esports has still not become a mass rage kind of a thing, wherein we would not see that let's say if you visit a hotel or some restaurant or some pub, you would see esports matches being seen when everybody is getting together cheering for whatever favorite teams or countries they have. So that's one one particular big challenge which we have, and that is where traditional sports, because so that is where typically so in the traditional sports structure, when you look at it's completely established. You have a national federation, you have state level and district level. In our case, we are still new. Right, so that is where typically these our traditional sports federations can actually help our sports to kind of take it to the masses. In addition to while we are talking about let's say from the player side of it, the our players and content creators are creating a lot of content. So and these guys are making massive money. So imagine. So I know for the fact there are certain set of content creators who are making 60-70 lakh rupees per month, buying Ferraris or Maseratis and all those vehicles within India. So what typically happens is that, as in the previous panel also, somebody was saying that the youngsters or the Gen Z does not watch traditional sports. Right, and that is correct. There is no hiding from that fact. But what are these guys doing is they are typically, let's say, playing a FIFA or a eFootball on the consoles, mobile, whatever. So the biggest advantage our esports can bring into such kind of traditional sports is, like, if, for example, if I'm playing FIFA on my PlayStation or Xbox, now whatever tricks and everything I'm trying down on while I'm playing that game. So what typically happens is that I would always want to kind of replicate those things at a physical level. Take for example, if I play, unfortunately I don't play FIFA. Let's say if I, press X, Y, A on my console, and maybe, I start dribbling and maybe I'm able to kind of give a kick. So I would definitely want to replicate that thing when I'm actually playing a traditional sport. So that also becomes very motivational thing. Virtually if I'm able to do that, but can I also do it physically? So it can be a good initiative for bringing the generation, Gen Z, towards the traditional sport. So if I'm doing something virtually, why not to kind of try to see it, can I do it in a traditional way or not? And while this, so obviously whatever content, let's say our generation is creating, when I say our generation, obviously I mean to say the Gen Z generation is creating, people of my age group don't watch. Right, so it can be across this thing that Gen Z guys can actually, through traditional sports, we can force the people like my age to start watching, esports thing, and it can happen obviously vice versa also through the traditional sports when these matches and all these leagues and everything are broadcasted, and so we can pull the Gen Zs to kind of watch and increase that fan following there. So that's a massive connect in the terms of the. Similarly, in our case, we are a digital product. So for us, streaming is like piece of a cake. Within sitting here, I myself can set up a streaming thing and I can stream everything, right? So our kids are so smart. So so as I said, that streaming eventually. So while we are talking about traditional sports, or similarly, whatever things are being done. So these guys are smart. So these kind of guys eventually can not only come up and assist those streaming kind of things, because they can also push. Let's say if tomorrow Baichung Bhutia is, let's say, playing or practicing a particular match. So so our guys can start streaming about it. See, watch Baichung Bhutia stream, or sorry, play this particular match. Come and watch him, come and encourage him, or learn from his whatever virtual sessions and all those things. I think it's a good conflicts. Both traditional sports and esports can actually and should take both their objectives to forward, hand holding each other.
Absolutely. Do you think esports has that content advantage because it connects easily to Gen Z?
Absolutely, 500%. See, it's very difficult. See, today's Gen Z's retention is, they have very short retention time frame, and plus, they keep on fluctuating. So gaming or esports effectively becomes one very thing, which one particular thing which is very close to their heart. So I think it's a perfect partnership there. Yeah.
What kind of revenue models and revenue opportunities are we looking at with respect to esports driving it for different clubs and different footballers as well? You spoke about, footballers and these kids making 16, 17 lakhs a month.
60 lakhs, not 1660.
Wow, okay, I did not expect that also. How do you think, esports is then driving those numbers for football clubs and further for footballers?
See, what I have, I come from a corporate background, right? I've spent 18, 20 years working in different telcos. So what I have, when I, jumped into this, what I have realized is that typically in India, not only in India, but outside India also, typically sports always struggles in the terms of revenue generation, monetization, and sponsorships and all. So now, let's say if the traditional sports federations or events or that particular sector starts kind of acknowledging esports. Obviously, they have already acknowledged. Olympics has said that esports is a sport and so on. But all I'm saying is that they should typically start looking at having esports teams along with them. So typically, what happens is that just giving you an example, let's say. From a football perspective, let's say All India Football Federation tomorrow decides to do a football championship, right? So one of the easiest things which they're already doing, and it's highly appreciated, that they're doing a FIFA, qualifiers and this thing. But let's say, and unfortunately, FIFA is not that much played game in India. FIFA as a video game. But let's say so not only FIFA, but let's say they pick up any of the famous titles. Sorry, the famous esports title. Unfortunately, PUBG and BGMI were the biggest one, or the Free Fire one. But assuming that they were not banned in India, and so they could parallelly look at doing, let's say, a PUBG tournament in India, or a FIFA tournament, or for that matter, let's say a Dota tournament. Right, so in that case, what will happen is they will get more opportunities for tech companies. So unfortunately, other than maybe Satyam or TCS or these companies, not major of the tech companies are effectively involved into let's say bringing or sponsoring sports properties. But with this, because all the tech companies, all the tech startups would always want Gen Z guys to kind of start consuming or become their user or acquire these young users. So I think it's a good way wherein they can, whatever events they are doing, they should definitely look at doing some kind of a esports event. It can definitely be taken up at a national level, wherein this also increases a possibility of increasing their sponsorship deliverable. When they today go back to, let's say, a sponsor, typically they would say that we got, let's say, so many events would happen, so many days, these are the number of players. And in traditional sport, typically at the max you would have 1,000 players participating. Obviously, if it's a multi-sport event, you might have 20-30,000. But in our case, you simply, let's say, announce, again, sorry to talk about PUBG or BGMI here, but let's say the moment you announce this kind of event for BGMI, you would have lakhs of teams participating, and one team, 4 people at least. So we are talking about 4 lakh people participating and watching. So in our case, when a decent set of a esports event is streamed in India also, typically with decent set of marketing, the digital viewership numbers cross 1 million, 4 million, 3 million. And those are astonishing numbers. Why would not any sponsor come on board and be willing to kind of partner with you if he's getting that kind of visibility? So that's a massive strength which esports has. That's the biggest value. I personally think that that's the biggest value which esports brings to our traditional sports. So traditional sports and esports, they should definitely walk hand in hand.
Absolutely. Do you feel there are challenges in driving more and more brands and more clubs to incorporate esports, and if so, why? And what can change?
From a brand perspective, globally, yes, there are challenges also. And second, in the terms of, let's say, partnerships, so I'll talk about the brands first. Now, the biggest challenge with what brands face is that because our community is very digital, right? So, and our audience is typically, see, we have to also be very cautious of, our target audience. In esports, the target audience is typically, let's say, 14 to 21, 22. That's where the larger set of audience reside. Now, that kind of audience is not that mature as when you do a comparison with the traditional sports, wherein, let's say, typically a national level athlete of any sport would be of an age group of 23, 24. Maybe the football guys can confirm back to that. But that's the typical age group which we have. Now, those guys are comparatively mature. They have kind of finished their graduation at least, or a decent set of educational qualification. In our case, our athletes typically struggle between education and basically studies and the game. And that is where at times we have seen that, best of the talent actually, see, in India, obviously, roti, kapda, makan is still the key parameter wherein everything is looked at. So in that case, our target audience is typically that athlete who is like, let's say, 15, 16 or 20, when he's struggling between कि मैं game खेलने पे ध्यान दूँ या मैं पढ़ाई करूँ. But even if he wants to, let's say, focus on a particular game and, go for coaching and things like that, but his parents would not support until unless he has proven something, like our content creators which we have in India. So that is one very big challenge. And so coming back to the question in the terms of brand, so the point here was that our audience is not that mature. So what happens if anything is not, obviously, in the terms of their experience and maturity, that is less. They don't know how the things at times happen, how to kind of interact with the brand, what to say, what not to say. So at times our community typically, uses social media as one of the means to, go, and it becomes their grudging ground, ranting ground, if I may so. But typically, brands are very cautious of those things. They are trying to, come on board as a support to, help you grow or whatever ways they. But if you want to take a route of a social media, see, no brand would do that. So having said so, I'm not saying that the brands are not getting engaged, but typically that is where largely, and obviously a lot of cases have also happened, and with us also that has happened, right? So typically what happens is that brands are very wary of openly kind of coming on board. So when you talk about today cricket or football or any other sport, nobody, you won't even, tomorrow let's say any brand wants to come up and, let's say support PV Sindhu, and say nobody, they don't have to think on the points which I have recently shared. They know, she is a mature lady, she would not, get into any kind of a thing. And but in our case, that's the biggest challenge. So that is the reason why typically we see the brands typically at times, are wary to do that. In the terms of a partnership, typically as a federation or as esport, typically we would look at, obviously the partnership with the traditional sports organizations. Thankfully, a lot of work has been sorted out by Olympics when they said that, esports is a sport, and which was validated by Asian Games, OCA, and similarly with FIFA also, or right, wherein they started doing FIFA World Cup and all those things. But typically what happens is that still, obviously, our people within the traditional sports federation are still of a mindset where it's becoming very difficult for somebody to go and tell them that, okay, so there's a video game, उस पे competition करोगे तो वो e-sports है या वो उसको भी sports है. So the first mental kind of a question comes in, ये कैसे sports हो गया, right? So so that is one big challenge within India we still face, and see, being part of the federations, and federations have got its own challenges also, right? And I was just talking to somebody out here that typically what happens is that federations are normally on a pro bono basis, right? Because you like a sport or you want to do something, and that is the reason why you take that route, wherein you want to support the that particular sport. But typically, because it's a pro bono thing, so a lot of ego clashes also happen. So when two federations are sitting and talking about a common subject, वो कहीं ना कहीं ego clash होता ही है. Because नहीं ये हम करेंगे, ये आप करेंगे. So thankfully, because as I said that we the way I look at it within India, I think that we need larger support from the traditional sports federations because they already have a structure. Obviously, we are also part of the same structure, but उनका establish है. मतलब आज हम पूछे district में कितनी association है, so they'll be like ये district association. ये हमारे वाले case में हम अभी उस stage तक, we have not reached to that stage. So typically, the traditional sports structures can actually, or the traditional sports federations can effectively help us, take this to the deeper level, wherein our sports can also become masses. Wherein, as Jose recently said that, I was hoping that, that guy would have talked about, some of our esports global Buka or somebody who won that Fortnite World Cup. But so so that is we need their help. So that is the way wherein. So थोड़े बहुत challenges रहते हैं, but again, as I said, these are good challenges to have, not because these are kind of created challenges, but these are natural challenges which will eventually, as you do more discussions, they will automatically get sorted out. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, to wrap it up and get your concluding thoughts, what do you think are the upcoming opportunities and trends in esports that we should look out for, especially with respect to football?
So obviously, on the concluding note, I would again go back to my first point, guys. Don't confuse between esports, online gaming, gambling, teen patti, rummy, poker. That is not. बहुत बड़ा challenge रहता है हम लोगों के साथ. We see a lot of articles coming in. It becomes very this thing. We on one side we are talking about our athlete who is like less than 18. अब उसको आप लीगल फ्रेम में वो खेलेगा तो KYC होगा, वो जेल चला जाएगा, वो सब हो जाएगा. We are not that kind of obviously we are not that sport. In the trends, I think what FIFA has done is it's a great thing that they are using their existing sports machinery to kind of take it forward. But one very exciting thing which has started happening and wherein the international sports federations have started looking at is that to build or to identify a virtual video game for their particular sport. Now take for example, obviously, FIFA tied up with Electronic Arts and they built that game, FIFA, the video game. Similarly, if I'm not wrong, the Table Tennis International Federation is also working on that. So that's a new trend which is coming in. So which will typically, help in, and obviously it will percolate down to India also, then the state levels and other thing. So that's a good thing which is happening. Because, one very important thing, and I forgot to mention about one challenge is that our esports is yet not recognized as a sport within the country. We are trying to get that thing done. But so typically, so that's an interesting trend where international federations have started building those kind of video games. So that will bring standardization, and and it will solve one of the biggest problem that. मम्मी पापा अपने बच्चों को ये नहीं बोलेंगे आप वीडियो गेम खेल रहे आप टाइम खराब कर रहे because it's kind of you can win medals for the country. So that is another one. And but again, as I said that I think from the monetization perspective, esports will eventually help the traditional sports machinery to bring on board the new set of brands, and it opens up a new set of brands which has got a lot of money also. So that's what I would want to conclude with.
I have to ask about women's esports players as well. So if you could say a few words about where you think that will go in the future.
I think absolutely right. We have been trying to, and we have done a couple of things also in the past. We eventually started with the female ranking scrims for Free Fire. Unfortunately, Free Fire again got banned. So we did that and it was pretty successful. We had, and to an extent that we had. What we did is obviously, so we had a lot of female athletes, playing in that particular tournament. What we also ensured is even the caster, that person also had to be a woman. So we had female casters who were coming in. Obviously, with the streaming and other things, we were, our team was helping them from the back end. So that is one. But specifically, involvement of women is very important because I think esports is the only sport which is which is kind of a neutral to any gender, age, caste, creed, or anything. And so we have certain set of specially abled people within India also and internationally also who actually compete with the normal people. Right, when I say normal in the sense, the other set of this thing. And very recently in Commonwealth Esports Championship, the New Zealand team which India defeated to win a bronze medal, we had in the New Zealand team, it was a team of 5 versus 5. So we had a female player from their side. Unfortunately, not from our side, but within India as a federation, we definitely are working on building that kind of a structure. It's just that because Free Fire got banned, now we have to identify what game we need to pick up. And so typically, examples could be again Dota or a League of Legends or Valorant for that matter. So these are the 3 titles wherein we are looking at. FIFA, of course, we would definitely. And one very interesting thing as far as our contribution, I know you're trying to ask me that question in the terms that we had a coach for Rocket League team. She was a female. Yeah, so we definitely try to, wherever possible, include women also into all our set of activities. So again, as I said, our federation is like a startup federation. So a lot of things need to be done yet, but we are very confident we'll be able to do all those things. Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of the panel discussion, but really appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and we're excited towards where esports is going to take the country forward as well, and more and more Commonwealth and Olympic medals as well to come. So
thank you. Thank you, Ananya. Thank you, everybody. Please, namaste.
Esports certainly is the future of this country. Thank you so much, Ananya and Lokesh, to join us and for this insightful session.